Thank you, Bhai. We'll be talking about K6 and JMeter today. I guess it has been a question that, even on the earlier sessions on Playwright, it was asked that can we do performance test using Playwright? So we said no, there are other tools. So here it is. And before we start, uh, let's just clarify this whole session is about what K6 is and what can you do with it. It's not a session about what performance test is. So that would be a whole different session. So uh, another another thing is that uh, it's a usual thing that before we start any session, we wait for 5 minutes. So I put up a slide like this with all the terminologies that you have to know for load testing, right? So it used to be the case. So for fun purpose, if anybody can figure out what this means or what this does, please add it to the comment section. We might go through it. And also, don't worry. So this used to be the case for JMeter. It's not the case for K6. So K6 is much simpler. So yeah, we'll be presenting. I'm Shantanu Roy, and with me is Ibrahim Khalil. And let's start with the first question that I was talking about. That we had a question that can we do performance test with Playwright? So the answer was no. The thing is, when I think about how to choose a framework, there are few basic things. So in Bengali, I would say that J framework ke aram pai. And yeah, Tom will be going in English, but we'll use some Bengali phrases because it's different in Bengali. So basically, which framework is comfortable enough for us? So the definition of comfort for me are the follows. The first one is it should be fit for purpose. For example, I need to do performance test. That is not easily done or done at all by Playwright because in a performance test framework, we expect it to produce heavy load and produce a separate set of metrics, right? For functional testing frameworks, it's just pass or fail. And for performance test frameworks, the metrics are like what's the HTTP request time and other things like that. So you have to figure out what is if it is fit for purpose. Also, while choosing between the performance test frameworks like JMeter or K6, again, you have to consider if it is fit for the purpose. So the first step is find out or figure out what your problem is. So for example, if you need legacy protocols to be tested, like LDAP or something, if such is the case, you might go for JMeter. So in that case, K6 is not fit for that purpose. And then if you need collaboration, like you are maintaining and building and adding test cases, and there's a whole team working on it, and they're collaborating. So codes will be merged. So that is easier on K6 because it is code based, whereas JMeter produces XML files. So that is very hard if there are some merge conflicts. We'll see in a minute how it looks like. And also, yeah, that's the first thing that for example, like we have Playwright, we don't have to do everything with that. You need to find out if it is fit for purpose. Okay, the second thing is, second definition of Aram is that if it has an active open source community and the community updates with fixes and useful features, and the community should listen to the whole community, that is the users. So as you can see, I went to GitHub and I was actually surprised. JMeter has been there for a while, and we have just 78 contributors, while K6 is the new kid in the town, and it has been 230 contributors. And you can see the contribution graph. The JMeter is going down, whereas K6 is going up. And also about the contributions, I should say that I've been using K6 for the last 3 to 4 years, on and off. And each time I have to do anything with K6, I see that it has just completely changed or added vast new features. Like K6 started with a very little company called Load Impact. It was a very small company. And in a year, it has been brought by Grafana. So, and then the major problem that K6 had initially under load impact was that we couldn't do distributor testing when we want vast amount of loads. That was also introduced. And when I came back again, I saw that it added browser testing. And every time you come back, you see a surprise. So yeah, the community, I can assure that the community is heavily active. All right, the third definition of Aram, that is comfort, is how good the documentation is. I just put a screenshot of both the K6 documentation and the JMeter documentation, and you can see that the JMeter documentation looks legacy. And also, if you go through the documentation, it's highly technical and it's difficult to understand. Whereas in K6, it's just pretty straightforward, to the point, and it also has videos on the. In fact, K6 has a YouTube channel for the documentation or guides, so that's pretty helpful. So the community is also active on its documentation, not only the framework but also on the documentation. So this gives me great pleasure. All right, the next source of Aram is, or I would say that one mandatory thing is that, and also one complaint about JMeter was that it's quite heavy. So JMeter recommended to run it in non-GUI mode to save resource, whereas K6 is said to be very light. So I didn't take the word for it. So I did some experiments myself. What I did was that I set up containers for both K6 and JMeter, and the containers were resource capped at 1 core of CPU and 1 GB of memory. And it made 1,000 requests per second, both the scripts. So, and then I observed the resource usage through Portainer, and this is what I saw. Maybe it's hard for you to see it. I'll just describe it. So this part is the idle time. So in the script, the first 30 seconds, it doesn't make any request. And then after 30 seconds, it starts with 1,000 requests per second, right? So this is basically the idle time where it's just doing nothing for JMeter. And it is taking about nearly 600 megabytes out of the allocated 1 GB. Also, when the HTTP request starts, it takes up more than 1 GB for 1,000 requests. So somehow, I guess Docker allows for a bit more than the allocated memory. So that's what JMeter did. It took up like 1.1 GB of memory for 1,000 requests. And the CPU usage was off the charts. It went 100%. Same thing I did for K6. And here, for the idle time, it took only 125 megabyte. Just 125 megabyte while doing nothing. And at the highest peak of 1,000 requests per second, it took less than 250 megabyte. And this was the CPU utilization. It's this peak is not even 60%. So K6 is way lighter than JMeter. So what that means is that on the same machine, you can create more requests per second. With JMeter, when you had to create large amount of requests, there was this thing that you had to set up multiple machines, and one machine was the master, the other were slave, and you just made the request in a distributed manner from all the machines, even if you had to make like 10,000 requests. And for K6, you can make 10,000 requests per second from a single machine. And on top of that, if you need more, like if you want to do some DDoS attack, you can do the distributed testing in K6 also. Not recommended. Don't do DDoS attack, but you can. All right. The third thing is that whenever using JMeter, and there are some exceptions, this is a common thing that everybody just says that Java version ঠিক আছে? In Bengali, that means is the Java version correct or not? So this is the common first thing that everybody says. So which means that to run a JMeter test, you have multiple dependencies, and the setup is cumbersome. You have to set up Java, you have to set up the environment variables and configure UI elements, multiple UI elements. Whereas in K6, you just do a Choco install K6, write a script in JS, and I've put a screenshot of the script. The script will look like this, 3 or 4 lines of code, and run from the CLI. That's it, no dependencies. So it's very easy to set up. All right, another thing about, another point of Aram or comfort is the readability. So I have created a video and posted it here. You don't have to look at the code. I can't from my PC. So what's happening is on the right side is the K6. On the left side is the JMeter. So recently I did one course regarding clean code. So to summarize the course, I would say that you have to maintain 2 things: good naming, and your code should be readable from left to right, top to bottom, without jumps. This is the summary. So to achieve that, you can do multiple things, but this is the thing: left to right, top to bottom, without any jumps. So on the right, you can see that the whole script. To read the whole script, you just have to go from top to bottom. And on JMeter, you can see the red highlight part. So that's basically pointing out where your eyes will go while navigating through the same script. These are the same script basically in JMeter and K6. So your eyes will go everywhere. So readability is, in terms of readability, K6 has really good advantage. Right. So also in JMeter, since it is GUI elements based, basically what you have to do is to create a request, you have to add one element. And for example, if you have to do some processing before making the request, you have to add one element inside it, which is request first, and then you have to go inside and then read what needs to be done before the request was made. So readability is a mess in JMeter, in my opinion. All right, now it comes to collaboration. So what I did was the same script that you saw earlier, it's a part of it. What I did was change 2 things. Change this bit, that is how the load will be generated. That is, it will run for 1 minute using 1 user. And I changed it into stages, that the load will change in stages, each stage with 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. And the target will be 10 users, then 20 users, and 0. So it's just 3 lines of code, right? And I also changed the URL so that a merge conflict occurs between 2 branches. So the conflict will look like this. just these three lines, and it's highly readable, and you can resolve them pretty easily. So the same thing I did with JMeter, and this is how it looks like. Exact same thing. This is because JMeter produces XML, and when we are talking about collaboration, we are talking about collaborating in Git. So when multiple developers try to merge their changes, and if you have any merge conflicts, then God bless you. Try to resolve this. This is not readable. So this is the problem with the collaboration with JMeter. So usually what I've seen with JMeter with people is that they just make one JMX and share it through Slack or something else. So collaboration is a pain in JMeter. So yeah, to summarize and to add, the final point of ARAM is the maintainability and the test authoring. So if you compare between JMeter and K6, the way you create the script is you add GUI elements, and it's hard to reuse because, for example, you have two script. So you will have two JMX files. So you have one set of logic on one JMX, and that's a GUI element. You cannot reuse it across other files, right? But in code, you can. You just write a function somewhere and you just call it everywhere you need it. So in JMeter, if you have any changes on that part, on reusable part, you have to make changes or add that copy and paste to every scripts you have. And if you have changes, you have to make changes to everywhere. So it's really a pain to reuse code. And also, you'll have some logics in your script. So in JMeter, for logics also, you have to add logic elements, which is very hard to read. And in case it is just regular programming logic. And naming, as you have seen on the first slide, in JMeter, it has some very counterintuitive name. Has anyone added any, description in the comment? Has anyone figured out? So yeah, that's the point. JMeter has some very difficult naming. It's very difficult to understand and very easy to forget. And K6, it's just intuitive. We'll see later on. And readability, we have seen. And another point is just debugging. For JMeter, if you have to debug, again, you have to add a debug element, and it just shows what variable value it has. That's the limit of the debug element. But in K6, you can just debug everything line by line, and it's just regular debugging that you do while development. And collaboration also, you have seen the example. It's pretty difficult with JMeter. And another pain point for JMeter is that while writing script, you don't have any, intelligence. You just have to pray that your code works. And in K6, you have intelligence from the IDE, and also now you have Copilot. Oh, another thing I forgot about the readability part. Let me just add it. Is that where was it? So JMeter, as I've said that readability is top to bottom, left to right, and it should be homogeneous, right? So another point of JMeter is that JMeter is a combination of UI elements, and when you have to add complex logics, you have to add another element where you can write code. So while reading, you have to understand the UI elements and also switch your mind or get ready to read some code. So it's not homogeneous at all. So it will be a really pain. You can try for yourself. Don't take my words. Please go ahead and try JMeter and give a review on Slack. All right. The last source of ARAM is that in load testing frameworks, it's pretty important to know all the metrics that it has created. And there are multiple monitoring and observability platforms, and K6 integrates with them pretty easily with very low configuration with almost all of them. This is a pretty long list. So we'll see some of the examples today. And yeah, I guess my part is up to this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll hand it over to Noman.
You just stop the sharing and
Yes.
Give us 30 seconds. Enter screen or Windows. Enter screen, I think. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So Shantanu has described the main difficulties on JMeter versus K6. So I'll try to do some theoretical aspects and try to give some example on K6. So the first thing, if you come from JMeter or as a Q engineer, you may come from JMeter, but as a developer, I always should I should suggest that start with K6. But there's a two terminologies like. In JMeter, we say that is a threads, and in K6 it's a virtual user. So the theoretical aspects is same, but if you go deep dive into the thing, like it's kind of a very different thing from architectural view. Shantanu already said about this kind of thing. Because and also in chat I saw that Saria mentioned that things that it's in thread, it's a pure Java based thread, and in K6 it's written on Go, and the virtual users is critical, lightweight, and event driven. So in when you create a script, you can play more with virtual user in K6 than JMeter. So we'll see that what is virtual user and other things. First, I will just try to go through some theoretical aspects, and then I will move to the script. And there is another thing, think time. So when we will write a script, we need to bear in mind that about the think time, because when user visits your site, user is not a machine. Like he will you will just do the API calls one after another. User goes to your website, he thinks like what product I should choose, what article should I read, and then he clicks, right? So between every action there is some think time. So you can actually put a very static think time like 2 seconds, or you can randomize the think time for every call like 2 to 5 seconds or 5 to 6 seconds, depends on your system. And the stages, you can run the K6 scripts without stages. Like you just mentioned 10 virtual user for 10 seconds, your script will run. Even if you do not mention that, your scripts will run for a single user for a single particular time. Then what is stage? So stage, when we say that it's a performance test, we actually try to know how my website will behave in under different stress, different load. So there is the Amenar Ma and like go in a heart attack, and there are some different kind of stress and different kind of loads. That is a different discussion part for performance testing, but we'll see something in our script. But the stages is like, if you want to try to write your script in like, let's say in 5 minutes, I want to hit 500 user in my website, and the next 5 minutes the user will come down to 200, and then the next minute I need that, okay, my website will browse with 2000 users. So if you write this kind of scenarios, you have to do the stages thing. Okay, after that slide we'll move to maybe to the a real script and the structure of a basic script. So plain JavaScript K6 script will consist of 4 things like option, setup function, default function, and teardown function. Maybe in most of the cases you won't see the setup function, you won't see the teardown function, because if you do not explicitly write the teardown function, K6 will put the teardown function for you. And for the setup function, if you want to do some some database connection and you want to create some test data like test user and other things, then you can use the setup function. And in the option, we will say that how many virtual users we want to use in this script, and how for how long I want to run the test, and what will be the threshold, what will be my checks, this what will be my stages. This kind of thing we can describe inside the option thing. So okay, that's the theoretical part. So what we learned from the theoretical parts, the virtual user, thing time, and stages, and the structure. Okay, so if I go to my Visual Studio Code, so that's a very simple K6 script. Okay, it's not a simple one. This is the simple one. Mine was a simple one, and the another from Shantanu, that was complex. Okay, so here you see that is the option one, where you describe your test virtual user and what time you want to your test will run, and this is the setup function. You can create all the test data, the DV connection, this kind of things in the setup function, and this is the function where you write actual logic in which API, which endpoint you want to perform the load test, and what are the test logic. This kind of thing you will describe inside this default function, and for every virtual user, typically every virtual user, this function will run. And it depends on other things like duration, time, and iteration things, but the basic thing is this will actually perform your load testing. Okay, and you can see there is a tear down function. Let's say you have connect the database for the testing, and after the test you need to tear down the database connection. Also, maybe you have run the test on production or any kind of test environment, and you have created some 500 or 1000 test user, and after the test you need to clean up those test user. You need to clean the test environment or any kind of environment. You can do these things kind of operation inside this function. Okay, and here is an example from Shantanu bhai. Like in the setup function, he did a lot of things, like he created a new user and the other connection and authentication of every user, for every user, every virtual user. And then inside the default function, he does the main testing. And after that, he also tear down these things and deleted all the test user he have created. So that is the main structure of a K6 script. And also you can see there in option there is a one, it will run for one virtual user for 1 minute. And you can see that in this script I have used some sleep time, and you can randomize this sleep time also. We'll see that in the next script. So after that we'll move to where with the metrics. Okay, first let me run a basic script, then we'll talk about the metrics things. Okay, let's run this one. Run demo scripts, not cloud. Yeah. Okay, so I'm running a very basic script, and you see that in terminal you will be shown a lot of metrics. So basically, among those scripts, the main thing actually we want to know this HTTP request duration, and it consists of several metrics like average, mean, mid, max, P19 and P95. So the main important thing is P90 and P95. Maybe you can use P99, and also the max and mid thing, minimum things. So what is P99 metrics? P99 is like 90% of the virtual user you have used actually served between less than or equal to 45 milliseconds. From here you can see that like 90% user actually served between 0 to 245 millisecond, or less than equal to 245 millisecond. And 95 95% of your virtual user actually served from your server equal to or less than 245 millisecond. So it will give you an aspect that okay, if I use 100 user for that much time, I want that 95% of my user should be served within this amount of time. You will get that these things, because maybe you want to know that what about 99% user getting the experience from my website. So this kind of things you will get from this matrix. Also, other things that you can go to the documentation and explore yourself. But in general, in K6, this matrix is divided into two parts. This is the default matrix, and there are some customized metrics that you can use for yourself. You can customize those metrics, and you can use these things in your script. We'll see in a bit. And okay, so after that, no, let's run some custom script then. Okay. So between those custom scripts, among those custom scripts, there is gauze, count, trend, and rate. So it's divided into those subparts. So here I am using a customized matrix. In this result, you will see that there is a successful request here, right? This is coming from this custom script. If I run another script, you will see this line in your normal script while you do not use any custom script. But if you use this script, you want to customize the matrix things and you to aggregate the result, then you can use the customized matrix, and for that you have to know that which kind of metrics are fall into which kind of, like there are some metrics here like this average, mean, this will be in trend type, and there is some other like the request failure rate. This is kind of a rate, so it will go on the sub part of the rate, and there is some gauze and there's counter. In counter, you want to know like how many requests has failed. This kind of counting things you can customize in your script if you want a customized result. So K6 give you this kind of benefits. And after that, I'll move to the test result thing. You have seen this matrix in my local machine in terminal. But what if you want to show, you want to see this result, in a very intuitive manner, like in an HTML report. Maybe you want to see live streaming. Your test is running for 1 hour, and you want a dashboard where your result updates immediately, and you can pinpoint, okay, right now my request, this much user is hitting my website, and this is the response time my website is giving me, my server is giving me. So all you can do using this K6. So first, you can see that this is the first basic thing. You run your test locally and you see the result in the terminal. But if you want to run the test and also want a shareable HTML file and also want the stream, first you can have it in your local system. Like if I run the test, okay, it's running, and you see that this is the place where it's not working. Okay, this is the place you can see the live monitoring. It's a local dashboard. It's running on my 566 port in my local machine. So when you run your test locally, you can see this kind of result. Also, after the result, after the test execution, there is a report button. There's a report button. If you click this report button, it will download or it will generate an HTML file which is shareable. You can share this with your manager, with your teammates, actually in mail or in Slack. So this is a thing you can do in locally. But what if you want to do it in cloud machine? So K6, as already Shantanu mentioned, that K6 is bought by Grafana. So what Grafana does, so you can do a free version. You can buy a free version, free trial version here. It's not trial, actually, it's already free, but your monthly cap will be 500 virtual user. And I think for a small purpose, it is quite enough. You can use this Grafana thing. So first you have to create a project, and inside this project, if I go to the settings, I have created a demo project. This is Cephalo demo project. So under this project, I want to run my local test and also see the result. So if you go to the settings, you can generate some API key. So I have already generated this. And if you want to use Grafana, you can follow this path. Why I clicked Slack. Okay, where is my script? Where is my script? It's done. So this script, if I run this from my local machine, what will it will do? It will run my test on Grafana. So before that, how you will set up Grafana thing? You can just use K6 login cloud dash token, and that API key we can put here, and you'll be authenticated. And after that, you just K6 cloud and the script name. So it will just run your test script on Grafana. So if I click on this, and this is the link, I want to open it. It will take some time. So right now, the script is not running in my local machine. It's running actually in Grafana's remote machine. So if you can do some, if you want to do something automate kind of things and scheduling kind of things, you can run your script on a remote machine. You can use Grafana here. So this is the report. This is the test result will be shown here within a minute. The test is running. Yeah, this is the Grafana dashboard. This is the Grafana dashboard where you can see the test result. So the test has been run on Grafana machine, Grafana remote machine, and the result is shown here. Also, another thing you can do. And the location. The test has been run from Columbus. So you can actually pinpoint and actually can select your location. Maybe you want to run the test script from London. Maybe you want to run the script from Singapore, maybe from India. So also that is the benefit using Grafana. And you can see that's one virtual user per hour. That is the minimum. If you run a single test, it's the minimum requirement. It will take one virtual user hour. And every month you will be given 500 virtual user per hour and 100 free virtual user if you use Grafana remote machine. And if you need more, then you can buy the subscription. But I think from the basic purpose and very small thing, it's quite enough. Okay. Now, the previous thing we have seen that the script is run on Grafana. You can do another thing. Your script will run in local machine, but the result will be thrown to Grafana. Maybe you do not want to, buy the subscription, and your machine is quite enough. You are using a Mac, a heavy machine maybe. So if from Mac, you can actually put easily 10,000 load using K6. So if you want to do that, K6 provides that opportunity also. So in that case, you just say the K6 run the script and output to cloud. So K6 run this script and -o, eventually meaning that the output will be in cloud. So in that case, I'm just running this script. Look, this script is running in my local machine right now. And that is the link where you can see the live streaming of your test. That part also we did from our local machine also. So there are some options you can choose between. So this will actually take some time. This test is for 20 seconds, I think. And this will show you the result in streaming mode. So it's kind of a time series database where you can see the result in live. Give it some time, it will change.
Also, in the load zone, now you can see that it's written local
execution. Yeah, there is no place. There is no geographical place. So yeah, that's the result part thing. Also, if you want to, if you have already database time series database or observability tools like Datadog, InfluxDB, and other things, you can actually configure K6 script there. And Shantanu also mentioned this on a slides, like how many options you have there: Grafana, InfluxDB, Prometheus, this kind of thing you can also do there. Okay. And right now we just till now we have written some very basic script which do not have any kind of checks and thresholds. So checks are like assertion. You are running a test, but when you on what perspective your test will pass or your test will fail, you can mention it on check. And also you can put some threshold, like we have also already seen that P95 and P90. So maybe you want that your 90% user should be served under 500 millisecond. Okay, that's very optimistic. Maybe under 10 second. Okay, so your 90% user should be served from your server within 10 second, and there will be no check failure. Like every request should send 200 those 90% user. This kind of assertion or this kind of test verification you want to put, that in that case you have to use check and threshold. Let's see from script. So this is a very basic script where I have I want to run this script for 10 virtual user for 10 seconds, and I want to test this endpoint, this API. And the checks I want to mention, like if I run this for 10 virtual user for 10 seconds, I want that every time it will return 200. And also if I want that, okay, 200 is not enough for me. Maybe I want to know that the actual page, actual request body is served. That in that case, you have, if it returns any kind of JSON or it returns any HTML body, you can also check that inside this script. And where is threshold? So this is the matrix, right? We have already talked about HTTP duration. So I want 95% of my users should be served less than 100 millisecond time or less than or equal 100 millisecond time. And the HTTP request failed. Okay, maybe some user can fail because this heavy load, but 95% user is served. Rest of the 5% maybe take longer time to get into this website that we have experienced in our SSC and HSC result website, right? So it took long time, maybe a half day to get into this website. Okay, so you put those threshold and you put those checks. Right now, if you run those tests and if anything happens other than these checks and this threshold, your test will fail. So it will help you when you run the test, your management, you have a SLO, service level objective from your team, from your management, maybe from your manager, like this is my website and I want this should be served within this parameter. So you have written the script, you put the threshold and checks all those things, and you just automate the whole automation things, whole performance testing using this. Okay, and then after that this is my last slide, I think. Yes, the executor thing. So executor thing and the staging thing, you have, maybe it will be a bit confusing at the first time, because let me first describe the staging thing. Okay, how many time we have? Okay, we have a lot of times. So this is the staging part. So what I want here, I want, okay, for first 5 seconds, I want 2 user in my system, that will ramp up, and next 5 seconds I want 5 user, more 5 user, and this is stable 5. Like this is the stable situation. 5 seconds, 5 user will be continuously hit my website. Maybe next 5 seconds, this is the redundant one. And maybe for next 5 seconds, I want that, okay, every user, there will be 0 user in my system. But in next 5 seconds, I want like 300 user in my website. So there is some stage here, like some, this is the spy testing. This is the actually the Amenar Ma. So you want to know that this is the Anwar Hossain or not. Okay. So if it is Anwar Hossain, then this will be okay. Amenar Ma will appear jabega. And this is kind of the stressing thing. You want to sweat your website. Okay, I'll put much stress, I'll put much load. You will get it from this staging purpose. You can write like a point, like a destructive manner in this stages portion. And also you can use the executor. But there is a slight difference between executor and a staging thing. Executor actually give you more opportunity to control the script in a very granular level and more controlled way. And for that, K6 provided some predefined executor like share iterations, per view iterations. So first let me give an example first. Then, so where you can see there is no staging here, right? There is no here. This is a very simple executor, and the executor name is per view iterations. So here 10 virtual user, and the iteration means this default function will be run for every virtual user. So one virtual user, I want this function, this default function, this test will be run 20 times. So for 10 virtual user, it will be 200. So when you will use it, let's say you have some specific user which you want to log into the system, 10 user, and for that 10 credentials. So every user, you want that every user will get same kind of iterations. In that case, maybe you want to use this. So, and I put their maximum duration 60 seconds. So within this 60 seconds, let's say it will take only 30 seconds, okay, for 200 iterations, and the test will done, and it will come out from the script. It won't run any more iterations. It won't run 201 iteration. You want exactly this kind of iteration for exact this kind of user. So it's a kind of a very customized scenario, right? For you, maybe for one scenario you need this per iterations view. Maybe for another scenario you need shared iterations, where the iterations will be shared among the users. The user is not mainly the main agenda here. You want the iterations will be shared among the users. Maybe you want constant boost. Maybe you want to ramping virtual user. Like in this example, we can achieve this using these stages. Like for 5 seconds, I want to 500 user, and this will this user will come in a linear fashion, like within 5 seconds, 5, 10, 20, and 100 user. But you want immediate action. So in that case, maybe you can use this ramping views. So what it will do, it will preset your 100 user fast, and immediately it will hit your website with 100 user. So this kind of very customized scenario, you can put executor there instead of staging. Shantanu, you would want to add anything in executor?
Okay, so I'll add a couple things. That is, for example, let's go to the simple staging.
Yeah. Simple staging. Simple staging. This one?
Yeah. So what happens is that you are setting that the number of views, for example, is 2 and run it for 5 seconds. So what will happen is that each virtual user will be calling the request as many times as possible within the given time. Right. It doesn't. So what happens is that you don't know the volume of the HTTP requests that are being received by the server. Right. So there might be the case that I want to generate a load of 500 users per second. So for that, you can't use that because this is not accurate for that use case. So we have another executor that is we have another executor like constant arrival rate. Do you have the link of the documentation, constant arrival rate, how that looks?
Constant.
Yeah. So this is basically what I use the most whenever I was using K6, because I had to create a certain amount of what should I say, load density that should be received. So what happens is the constant arrival rate looks like this. So you set up or configure the duration for which you want this load scenario to be run. For example, here you are putting 30 seconds, and you have to define the rate. So in other cases, you define the number of virtual users, right? Here you don't. Here you just say that the rate should be 30. That is, the server should receive 30 requests per second, no matter what. What K6 does is that to generate those that 30 requests per second, it increases or decreases the number of views, because request when you make a request, the response will take various amounts of time, right? And one view, unless one request is completed, it cannot produce another one. So what K6 does is that, for example, it started with 3 views to create a rate of 30. Sorry, it can't basically. For example, it started with 30 views to create that load, and the response is taking time. But on the next second, you have to create another 30. So you can't do it with the existing 30. So what K6 will do is vary the views, right? So K6 provides these various kinds of load generation patterns, which is named executors, apart from the simple stages that we have seen. And another interesting thing is that you can actually set up scenarios with stages. For example, from the first 10 seconds will be this scenario, this executor, and the next 10 seconds will be that scenario. So you can configure that way also.
And also we can use multiple executor.
Yeah, multiple executors. So yeah, that's the point. So this is highly configurable, and it's pretty easy to just descriptively say how the load should look like.
Yes, then my part is done, I think.
Yeah. So
how can I stop the share? Stop sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Shantanu, you can come.
So we have a couple interesting things left. I'll try to be quick. Can you see the screen? Yeah, Windows 98. Good. All right. The next thing is that in JMeter we have browser recorded tests, right? So what we did is that we opened the browser, we went or navigated through some website or some web application, and there were a lot of HTTP requests made, API calls or static resource retrieval, and basically what the expectation is when you go to a certain website, all those calls will be made, and we want to see that how long will it take to resolve all those requests. For that, what we did is that record the HTTP, all the HTTP requests that the browser made, and then run it on various scenarios. So how K6 offers that is that K6 has this desktop application called K6 Studio. This is in beta, by the way. So features will be coming soon. But even now, you can use it. So let's try one thing that let's try to see how do you hide this. Let's try to see what Cephalo homepage does. So what I'll do is that I'll put down the URL and say start recording. Just like Playwright, it has its own browser and it will just, open it up and it will navigate to the URL. And on the background, you can see that it has recorded all the HTTP calls, right? Now let me just stop the recording. And now we have all the HTTP calls and also the HTTP calls that we don't need, right? So this is the recording part. Now we can create the test generator. So while creating the test generator, it knows that it has unnecessary API calls that we are not interested in. It will ask you to filter out which ones you do. So I'll filter out with the Cephalo domain. Actually, I have to do another thing. What I have to do is show static assets. Okay. Let's filter out with Cephalo. And I will also check include static assets because these are needed to render stuff, right? And what it did is that it created and filtered out these requests, and it also generated a script for you. What I can do is just copy it, put it on a JavaScript file. It's a long list. And then you can just set up the stages as we have described. So what will happen is that for the first 1 minute, it will create 20 requests. In the next 3 minutes, it will create 20 20 more requests. Let's just decrease it a bit. Let's run it for 10 seconds. And the target will be 500.
10 seconds, I guess, Shantanu. I can see
Okay,
10.
yeah. So you can just then run it. K6, run browser protocol.js. So now this will be running that scenario. So this is basically actually what we did when we were, I was working on the Cephalo carrier application, right? So what we did was that recorded the whole flow of applying for job. And we figured out how long, when we post a job, a lot of people will be applying, and if our server can handle it. So this is actually what we did, recorded and then observed that if it is able to. So one thing about this is that this is called protocol level testing, because we are only generating and looking at the HTTP requests that it made. But it actually does not depict how the website will behave, right? Let me give you the reason. Because Google published a set of web vitals, as they call it. There are a lot of web vitals, but I'll discuss about 3, because these 3 are pretty important, and this needs to be in proper range, because otherwise, if you have poor metrics, poor results of these, Google will rank your site lower, and your site will come in next pages or in lower rank when you search it. So these are really important. The first one is the contentful paint. As you can see, what this is basically is that the largest thing on this website is Biden, Kamala Harris, and I guess The Rock. Maybe not. So the first metric is the largest contentful paint. So how much does it take for the largest content to be painted? The recommendation is you have to be below 2.5. And if it's between 2.5 second to 4 second, it's okay, but you need to improve. Below 4, you seriously need to look into it. The next is the cumulative shift layout. Sometimes you can see that when you load the pages, your UI elements shift downwards or right side. So that is not a good user experience. So it really hampers the user experience. So there is a way to calculate or score your website in terms of CLS. So Google mentioned that if the score is less than 0.1, if the score is 0.1, less than 0.1, it's not second, it's a score. So it's fine. And from 0.1 to 0.25, it's needs improvement. The next one is, the final one is the interaction to next pane. That is, whenever you interact with any input field or a button, how long does it take for the next action to be painted or rendered? For example, in this animation, you can see that on the right side, it is responsive. You click it, you see the result. On the left one, you have to click and wait. It's not a very good experience. So these 3 things you need to worry about. So why am I talking about this? Because I remember on Playwright session, someone asked that if we can analyze a web page performance. So by web page performance, this is what we mean. Basically, these are the core web vitals that we need to measure. So how can it do that? K6, not just like Playwright, kind of like Playwright, offers you browser tests. So as you can see from this script, ignore this for now. Let's just look at the script. I created a page object model just to hide the locators. It looks horrendous. So just imagine that we can just select the locators, go to the page, kind of like Playwright. not as well, but kind of like Playwright. And you can just write the UI tests, right? What is happening is that what I did, went to the Cephalo homepage and collected the metrics, right? Here also, I'll do the same. Go to the page and just make a check that the title is correct, right? And now we can have a look at this, that here we have per view iteration executor. Why I put this? Because right now I want one virtual user to go to Cephalo homepage 3 times. So views are 1 and iterations are 3, and the test should be completed within 120 seconds. Otherwise, the whole test will time out. So let's just decrease this time so that we can complete soon. And on the threshold, you can see that I have put checks and the rate is 1, that is 100%. All the checks should pass. And for the checks, we are checking if the title is correct whenever we go to the homepage, right? And the next, these 3 things are the important part. Look, the LCP that I've mentioned on the slide, it needs to be within 2.5 seconds, right? So here's the threshold that I defined, that 95% of the requests should be under 2500 milliseconds, that is 2.5 seconds. Otherwise, this threshold will fail. Also, for the CLS, it should be the CLS score that I was talking about. It should be within 0.1. I've also defined that. And the INP, that is interaction to next input, that should be within 200 milliseconds. So all those web file tiles are defined here. So let's just run it, open in terminal, and let's just see how it looks. Is it partial? Let me just add
partial.
CD. All right. So it will also open up its own browser like Playwright and navigate it to there and show you the result. Now, on the result, you can see that the check, that is the title check, is correct. And we have put threshold and we say tick marks behind that because this passed. This was within range. The CLS was within range. Basically, all the metrics was within range, but you can see that the INP, right? Interaction to next input, all are 0. So the checks passed because it's less than 0.1, but all are 0. There's something going on, right? So this is because INP is interaction to next pane. So from interaction to the next pane, right? We haven't interacted with anything. We just went to the page. So to test that, what you need to do is fill up some forms so that you can interact with the UI element. So this is the test that will show the result. So let's run the test again. Now you can see that the INP is showing value and it's well under the limits. So I guess our Cephalo homepage is doing pretty well. So I guess we are nearly finished. And there are actually a lot more topics to be covered, but we wouldn't find time. Another interesting thing you can do with cases is that is chaos engineering. Just like we saw that we can generate load in a certain way. There's this thing called chaos engineering where you have a cluster of your services, and it should recover if 1 or 2 of the pods are down. So you can also generate fault to the pods, just burst 1 or 3 in the pod. So here on the screen, you can see that the load has a pattern and the disrupt also has a pattern. So with this pattern, it will just be, injecting faults to the cluster. And you'll just see that how it behaves when the cluster has some faults in it. So K6 calls it K6 disruptor API. So you can do that. I haven't explored it myself, but there's this thing. You can't do it with JMeter. And there are more tooling available. That is, you have some NPM packages like HAR2 K6 converter. You can just copy and paste from the browser the HAR files and get a script, K6 script. And also for the Postman or an OpenAPI, from OpenAPI to K6 scripts. And for almost all the IDEs, you have extensions. So it's pretty easy to write the scripts. And one last thing is that K6 is based on K6 extensions. To make it lightweight, what K6 does is that it gives some core functionalities within the build that you get. And by the way, for all the examples we just showed, we are using that core build. And if you need some extra features, for example, like you have some legacy protocols to be tested, that's not in the core build, you can just build it with 2 lines and use that binary. So, and it has a lot of extensions. So yeah, that's basically the end of it.
If anybody
has any questions.
We prefer no question, but if any question, then ask us.
Well, I guess I can add something. I won't actually ask anything.
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you guys. It was really nice presentation. Especially, I'd like to say the orchestration between you both of you guys are super. Especially whenever some kind of technical terms are out there and it just becomes a bit more technical, you guys actually keep up with the punchlines out there. And the gist, since I actually use JMeter, I can feel the improvements with the K6. And I'll definitely use K6 from later on for some of my testings. Thanks.
If you do not use the K6 from the next time, you can see this meme. Thereby,
Yeah.
be thrown out to the window.
This is for you.
This is for you. Okay, is there any question in message? So, of Sheldon sold. It was one of them.
Thank you, Polar 5.
6 has officially been sold. Okay.
Yeah. Another, if nobody has some questions, I'd like to mention another thing is that K6 is thread-based, which is why, JMeter is thread-based, which is why it is so heavy, because each thread will at least take up 3 to 4 megabytes.
Yeah.
Right. And since K6 is not thread-based, it's based on coroutines, and each one takes 2 to 3 kilobyte. And one might be thinking that JMeter runs in multiple threads, but think about this, that your processor has at max 8 cores. After that, you will be doing some kind of time slicing. So, yeah. All right, so I guess we are done.
Yeah.